Hello and happy May Day from Union Solidarity International. Today is the 1st of May, which is Christmas Day for workers. This is the day when we celebrate all the struggles that we've had together, all the solidarity that we've shown, and all the victories that we have won. Now, we are by no means where we want to be, but we are well on our way to raising the idea of worker solidarity and uniting workers around the world to fight for a decent, just and equitable world. So happy May Day to you as well, Andrew.
Happy May Day to you, Walton, and I think May Day is a very important day because, as we know, more and more people around the world are not familiar with trade unions, particularly young people, as a result of some of the policies that have been ongoing now for 20 to 30 years. And just like in the way where you might have religious festivals at Easter, which we've just had, May Day is an opportunity to raise in the public consciousness why we're actually having this holiday, just like religious holidays. So it's an opportunity for the trade union world to reach out not only to those who are already members of trade unions, but to try and get across to a different audience, perhaps who are coming through school in particular, to make them aware that their parents are off or that family relatives are off because of the struggles of workers over decades and decades to ensure that we had shorter working hours in the day. So it's an opportunity for us in many respects to use the religious terminology to renew our beliefs in what it is to be a trade union member and to try and promote that to a different audience. So it's a very important day, Walton, and I think over a number of years that people have perhaps in the public consciousness lost what the May Day weekend is all about. So today is an important opportunity for us to remind people that you have this holiday and your family relatives have this holiday because of the struggles of those who have came before us. So for that reason, it's a happy May Day, and let's go out and preach and promote to an audience around the world about why it's still important to be a trade union member today, because there's so many more fights and gains to be won.
From the Haymarket Martyrs in Chicago in 1888 all the way through to people taking industrial action right now, standing up for their rights and for the rights of their comrades and colleagues, May Day is really important. And I think also important on this day to focus attention on the world of work and of bosses and the kind of companies that we find ourselves working for. And to that end, the International Trade Union Congress has a competition for the worst boss in the world. Could it be yours? They have a number of fine candidates on their website, and I'll run through some of them quickly, and perhaps we can comment on the kinds of work that these bosses are providing. So currently top of the list is C. Douglas Macmillan, who's the CEO of Walmart Stores. Now, Walmart happens to be the biggest private sector employer in the world, so what Mr. Macmillan does is very important in the world of work. Also on the list, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan, Lloyd Bankfine of Goldman Sachs, and Charles Koch. I wanted to mispronounce that, but I thought it would be very unprofessional. Who is one of the notorious Koch brothers, one of the right-wing financiers in the US. Rupert Murdoch, we know very well. Lee Kan-hee, the chairman of Samsung. Then there is Akbar Al-Bakr, who's the CEO of Qatar Airways, and that's a company that we have featured on our website a number of times. He appears to be a particularly creepy boss. And finally is Ivan Glassenberg, who is the CEO of Glencore Xstrata. Now, these are all people we know and love and have had a lot of interaction with, haven't we?
Yes, they are. They are a fine motley crew, and I suppose there's a whole list of other individuals that we could add to it. So get involved in the ITUC's campaign. But more than the individuals, I think what the world's worst boss represents is the actual practices and ideologies of the companies that they represent. And you know, we have the News Corps of Rupert Murdoch, we have Qatar Airlines, we have the Walmarts of this world, the JP Morgan Chases and Goldman Sachs, who brought and facilitated the world financial depression, not recession, depression. So it is the practices of these companies, as well as perhaps the individuals not being particularly nice as well, that is embodied in what this campaign is around about. And of course, we had a piece published in the International Business Times, once again talking about the activities and practices of companies such as the Walmarts of this world and the gaps on the Rana Plaza anniversary, and about their lack of forthcoming, their lack of progress and fund that should be disseminated to the families of the bereaved and those who are injured and who are trying painfully in many respects to rebuild their lives. So it's how we can raise the consciousness about the practices of these individuals and their companies and how they are not participating in the sort of world that we want to see and create. So May Day and the Rana Plaza anniversary are very useful and mindful opportunities for us to not only renew what it is to be a trade unionist, but to concentrate the minds of the public and the activities and the behaviour of corporations around the world and their lack of regard for human rights and decency in many respects.
So we've seen their side, some of the terrible things that corporations are doing to enrich themselves. Let's turn that over and look at some examples of workers fighting back and taking action to build a better world. For me, one of the most inspiring things that's been happening recently is to see the level of activism coming out of China. Just to, quite recently, we reported on the Walmart strike in Changde when we saw this really, really impressive stand by Walmart workers in China to avoid a store closure. And now there is I think the biggest strike in China's history. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, it's been ongoing and it's actually receding over the last couple of days, Walton. It's in relation to the factory in Yuyuan where it is estimated more than 40,000 individuals went out on strike, quote unquote, in China. And this is a very important event because, as we've seen since the revolution in China, this sort of mass protest on the streets has never really occurred before, other than obviously the case of Tiananmen Square. This is one of the other examples in China's modern history where such a large scale of individuals went out in protest for their rights to be recognised, including the malpractice of social insurance not being paid to the workers, and there seemed to be a bit of blame between the company and the local authorities about who was actually to blame for the lack of payments. Now, the strike over the last several days has been receded because there has been an acknowledgement that these payments haven't been made to the workers. But the most important part of this story is that workers in their tens of thousands were prepared to come out in the streets to protest against the practices of this factory, who of course are providing shoes and trainers for companies such as the stature of Adidas. So a major industrial dispute involving one of the world's major corporations once again, Walton, and this is why we have been developing a strategy in relation to China, because some fascinating things are happening on the ground, whether it's in relation to Walmart or other protests that have been ongoing in terms of factory and workplace closures, and those who are involved in the protest being incarcerated for a potential criminality in relation to leading protests against closures. So it's a really interesting story, and there's a fantastic article by one of our USI organisers in China, Walton, Jennifer Chung, who's done an absolutely brilliant article on the Yuyuan strike and the difficulty to try and negotiate while recognising that the workers have legitimate demands, but obviously the potential for perhaps unsettling the stability that has been built over the last several decades. So a really fascinating example of workers' protest, and please check out Jennifer's article. I think it's really, truly insightful.
So it's May Day, the day that we celebrate the resilience of workers' struggle and everything that we do to build solidarity around the world. We wish you the best of luck and solidarity.
Solidarity.
From USI.